YouTube. Danny Staten, here on the Danny Dan blog, welcoming you to the pre-show. The pre-show for 13 o'clock live. Forgive me, I'm running a few minutes late tonight because thumbnails suck. But I welcome everybody to come as you are. Welcome into the chat. If you got a mod, be sure to drop your link. And we try to show and grow here. I welcome everybody to check out the people's channels whose link you will find in the chat. And if you like the channel, subscribe. And if you don't, fuck it. Welcome to Bat Mom. Welcome Devil Hunter. Welcome CBP TV. Come as you are, babies. Come as you are. And that's Salam Efa. Come as you are. As I want you to be. And normally I would play the full song by that really cool group. But since I'm running a little bit late tonight, you'll find this link in the chat. Check out my friend Pat McCormick as he plays the theme for 13 o'clock live with Daddy Dan. Rest, thrill, kill. And welcome to 13 o'clock live. I'm your host, Daily Dan. And I am all fucked up tonight. There you go. Tonight I'll be presenting Bigfoot, the mysterious monster from 1975, a documentary hosted by Peter Graves. It's a little bit longer than what I usually show, but immediately after the feature presentation, we will have a show and grow. We're also some videos by some really cool YouTubers. I'll drop their links in the chat. You can check them out. And any of my mods and any of my friends in chat, if I gave you a wrench, feel free to drop links in the chat and tell about your channel anytime you want to, because we're all here to show and grow and learn about each other and create the perfect YouTube family here on 13 o'clock live. And be sure to join me Wednesday nights on the Danny Staten channel, where I do another show and grow, but I call it the good stuff because I'm showing old TV shows from the 60s and 70s. And up and through Halloween, I'm showing Monster Squad, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl, and Land of the Lost. So be sure to check me out on the good stuff on the Danny Staten channel. And I'm sure my flock is everywhere. We'll throw that link in the chat for me. Mom, drop a comment for me real quick, please. Don't matter what you say. And that was Pat McCormick with Thrill Kill, the theme song for 13 O'Clock Live with Daily Dan. You'll forgive me for beating around the bush, but I want to have a lot of time in the after show, at least 20 or 30 minutes, to show y'all other channels, to help other channels grow, to highlight a few of my friends who have really great channels. So I'm just going to jump. I'm going to jump really quick right into the main event. I'm going to jump right into the feature presentation tonight, and stick around, because immediately after the feature presentation, I will be doing Show and Grow Live, where I'll host a lot of cool channels and talk about that for as long as I can tonight, till I blink out into the past. Because I'm really celebrating. As everybody knows, my mom passed away. It's very sad. But guess what? I got my inheritance. The Daily Dan is well off. Very well off. The Daily Dan is happy. The Daily Dan's going to go on YouTube channels this week, the ones where you can donate, and I'm going to drop $500 to different channels I like. So a few channels out there will be blessed by the Daily Dan. Can you guess who you are? Well, do that in the chat as we join Peter Graves as he talks about the mysterious monsters from 1975. And I hope you enjoy our feature presentation tonight.
Scientists representing the world's foremost research centers took part in the examination of the evidence. The facts that will be presented are true. This may be the most startling film you'll ever see.
I'm just trying to get it set up real good for you guys, because I'm still doing it hillbilly style, but next week I'm getting a laptop. Things will change. Things will change. How's the sound? Let me know. That's right, Daily Dan's headed out west because he wants to be a cowboy, baby. Welcome to my little edition of Copyright Theater. I call it Copyright Theater because I don't care what I show what I want. And I always get them wonderful little copyright claims. So whoever's getting the 8 cents for this show tonight, may I say from behalf of the Daily Dan blog, block you. Show and grow. Drop your links for sure. And I'll try not to talk too much during this long drug out feature presentation tonight. One day I'm going to start being like them little guys from Mystery Science Theater, and I'm going to show a movie, and I'm going to make fun of the motherfucker the whole movie long. As a matter of fact, coming up in October, be sure to join me, because I'm going to be showing horror movies all month, just for the fun of it, in October. Look at that skanky looking Bigfoot. Looks like he's hungry. He should eat more.
Come on, let's get out of here.
And I appreciate everybody
1975.
who came today.
Here in this forest, investigators have discovered a set of very strange footprints. Human-like footprints, about 18 inches long and 7 inches wide.
Sounds like my penis.
A mysterious creature is roaming this wilderness, a creature that has confounded scientists, baffled investigators, and captured the imagination of millions of people. We've all heard of the reported sightings of this creature, a creature most of us know as Bigfoot. We've read about it in our newspapers and heard about it on radio and television. And some of you, like me, might have been skeptical about these reports, wondering how it could be possible for a sizable population of 8-foot, 500-pound monsters to live among us on the edge of our industrialized
That goddamn big
society.
ass foot.
I was skeptical, but I was also tantalized by what I heard. So I decided to find out for myself whether Bigfoot was fact or fiction. I did this by going out to talk to the eyewitnesses, questioning scientists, by examining the footprints, by looking at and listening to all of the available evidence. What I found out, I will now show you. A body of evidence.
Welcome, AAP. Share me out, brother. Share me out.
First, there's the fact that this phenomenon
I will return to favor.
that each year, people of all kinds from many places report seeing the giant creature, describing it as being covered with hair, being half man, half ape, and as having an overwhelming stench. In the last decade alone, there have been over 300 reported sightings of Bigfoot in America. It's called by different names in different parts of the country, like Momo, or the Fouke Monster, or the Skunk Ape, or Sasquatch, or the Noxie Monster. But whatever they call it, the people who see it are all describing the same thing.
I felt something staring at me or a feeling of being watched. And I turned around and that's when I saw Bigfoot. I was terrified.
Well, I was in shock.
I'd be in shock if I turned around and saw her.
Conclusion I could make on this thing is it was a gorilla.
And we saw this hairy-looking animal crossing the road on its hind legs, and I can't tell you for sure what it was, but I believe it was Bigfoot.
In spite of such eyewitness testimony, there are scientists who say that creatures like Bigfoot do not exist, that such monsters dwell only in our minds, not in our forests. They point out that man has always been quick to believe in monsters, and that these beliefs are born out of the unknown and nurtured by the unexplained. But even these scientists agree that some monsters have had a basis in fact. For centuries, Western man had heard rumors about a legendary man-monster that roamed the jungles of darkest Africa. It wasn't until the late 19th century that science caught up with this legendary monster, calling it the gorilla. New legendary creatures are continually being found, like the Komodo dragon and the okapi, both discovered only in this century. The giant panda was not discovered by Western scientists until 1937. It is still rarely seen in its natural habitat, the bamboo jungles in the mountains of China. New species are, in fact, being discovered and classified each year. New mammals, reptiles, fish, birds, and thousands of new insects. People, too, are being discovered, like these Indians, the Tasadai, a Stone Age tribe living on the island of Mindanao in the Philippines. These primitive people lived on the edge of civilization, unknown and undiscovered by modern man until 1972. Closer to home is the story of Ishi, the dawn man of Redding, California. This sole surviving member of an otherwise extinct tribe of American Indians, the Yahi, lived in the forests nearby Sacramento without modern man's knowing it. When he emerged out of his Stone Age isolation in 1912, he was living proof that creatures like the Bigfoot could live among us without our knowledge. are even survivors of past ages that were once thought to be extinct, like the coelacanth, a species of fish scientists believed extinct for 60 million years, but found alive in the waters off South Africa in 1938. And like the creatures that dwell in Loch Ness, a mysterious lake in the Highlands of Scotland. Here in these waters dwells a family of monsters that some scientists believe are survivors from the age of the dinosaurs. The Loch Ness Monster has been reported seen by thousands of people, by tourists, and by the villagers who live around the lake. And yet for years, the scientific establishment has denied the possibility of the monster's existence. Denied it even though its history goes back to the year 565, when a saintly monk first wrote about his encounter with the creature. Denied it even in the face of contemporary accounts, like that of the Reverend Father Brucey.
We were standing on the jetty by the boathouse, just on the left there, and looking across to the bay, we saw a sudden tremendous turmoil in the waters, and without being able to see anything, what was causing it. And suddenly we noticed this huge black head moving along, 7 or 8 feet out of the water, very, very slowly, coming towards us in diagonal direction. And then after 15 seconds it went down, but we never saw any humps. But it was very exciting while it lasted.
A creature like the one Father Brucey saw was photographed in 1934 by a vacationing London surgeon, Robert K. Wilson. But scientists rejected that photograph as evidence, as they did this one, taken in 1951 by Lachlan Stewart. A photograph which shows the mysterious humps that undulate on the creature's back. This picture, taken in 1955 by Peter McNabb, was similarly rejected, even though it clearly shows the creature nearby a familiar landmark. There were at least 16 photographs of the Loch Ness Monster, and all of them were rejected as evidence by the scientific community. It wasn't until this man, Tim Dinsdale, took his motion picture film of the monster that some scientists began to take notice. It was in 1960. Dinsdale, an aeronautical engineer, took this film with his 16mm spring-wind camera using a 135mm telephoto lens. He submitted the film for analysis to the Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Center at the British Defense Ministry. They enlarged the film, as shown here, subjecting it to intense scrutiny. Their conclusions? That the film is of a living object, that it's moving 10 miles per hour, and that it's 6 feet wide and 5 feet high. Dinsdale's film of the creature encouraged a new breed of monster hunters. Starting in 1962, the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau brought a long-needed expertise into the search. They kept cameras pointed at all times on strategic parts of the lake. Their major achievement? This film, taken by Richard Rayner in June 1967. British Air Force scrutiny of this film led to the conclusion that, like the earlier Tim Dinsdale footage, this was a picture of a living object of some size. In 1969, for the first time, the monster hunters took their cameras underwater in submarines. But the unusually peaty and murky darkness of the loch's waters closed off all possible visibility. The submarines were considered useless and were withdrawn. Better results have been achieved with sonar, sound waves which collect echoes off whatever object they bounce. The echoes are converted into electrical signals on shipboard graphic recorders. 3 times, in 1969, 70, and 72, research teams acoustically exploring the depths of Loch Ness have had contact with large moving objects. Objects which some claim are the Loch Ness Monster. The director of one of these expeditions was a Boston patent lawyer and physicist, Dr. Robert Rhines, who 4 times has returned to Loch Ness to try to get subsurface photographs of the monster. Dr. Rhines each time has dropped waterproof cameras into the loch.
Boy out there? Yes. Well, it's right on the edge of the slope. It's in about 60, 65 feet of water going down. What we hoped to do was to lower this there and have this sink into the silt and so forth.
The cameras have been developed by Dr. Harold Edgerton of MIT, who also developed Jacques Cousteau's underwater equipment. The cameras are connected to powerful strobe lights and sonar recorders, all operated by computers. On at least 2 occasions, objects larger than 30 feet, like the Loch Ness Monster, have passed through the sonar beam. The computers then activated the strobe light and cameras, taking pictures every 10 seconds. In this way, the Rhines team has collected the best evidence to prove the Loch Ness Monster's existence.
I got $3.98 for the Loch Ness Monster.
From 100 feet below the surface, they have achieved dramatic photographs, while at the same time recording sonar tracings. Tracings which indicate the passing of 2 large marine animals. On the sonar tracings, even the oft-reported mysterious humps of the creature registered. The photographs are close-up dramatic pictures of a fin, about 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. The fin of the Loch Ness Monster. What is it? Tim Dinsdale, who has interviewed almost every living eyewitness of the monster, has an idea.
Then you get this tremendous body. The forward limbs, I think, are rather smaller than the rear ones. These curious humps, of which I think there are 2 basically at the pelvic and the shoulder girdle, and this region in between seems to be able to change shape. People have seen the back changing shape. They've actually watched it. And then right up the back end, you have, I think, a tremendous swimming tail, like a crocodile's tail, which is used to propel the thing through the water.
This mock-up, based on eyewitnesses' descriptions and the various photographs, suggests that the Loch Ness Monsters are a family of plesiosaurs, animals believed extinct for millions of years. As we learned with the coelacanth, extinct is not as final as it sounds. Some scientists now believe Loch Ness is home to 30 or 40 such giant creatures, creatures the local people refer to as Nessie, a harmless monster. Unless one considers the tragic accident that befell British speed champion John Cobb. Attempting to set a new record on water, Cobb took his boat, the Crusader, onto Loch Ness in 1955. Indications are that this was caused by the wake of one of the loch's monsters, which was trying to avoid Cobb's thundering speedboat. Once rejected by scientists and skeptics, the Loch Ness Monsters are now believed to live in this lake, 24 miles long, 1 mile wide. But still rejected by scientists and skeptics are the giant monsters that dwell in the forests of North America. There's still an uncharted wilderness in America where unknown creatures could live. Hundreds of thousands of square miles unexplored by man, mapped only by aerial survey. A wilderness extensive enough to conceal a large population of hairy giants. This wilderness is shrinking. Civilization is narrowing its boundaries. And as it does, our contact with the Bigfoot creatures becomes more frequent. Each year, there are more footprints discovered, more sightings reported. On the edge of the Oregon wilderness, in the Dalles, Bigfoot investigators have now opened an information center, not unlike what was done at Loch Ness, to keep abreast of the increasing reports of such sightings.
What happened? Do you think you actually saw something or heard something? Okay, did it look like a man? Was it walking upright? Okay, how big do you think it was?
Bigfoot, like the Loch Ness monster before it, is a creature that most people reject until they see it themselves. One skeptic was Mrs. Mary Jefferson, a widow living alone in a small town in northern Washington. In late August 1973, she was distracted by the incessant barking of her dog. Emerging out of the wilderness, perhaps because of the recent forest fires in the north, came a creature Mrs. Jefferson had never seen before. Later, an investigation team discovered giant footprints where Mrs. Jefferson said she saw the monster, providing supporting evidence to her testimony that Bigfoot had walked in her backyard.
He was 8 or 10 feet tall, and he weighed 700 or 800 pounds. Now, he walked upright like a man, and his hair, well, it was brownish, and it stood up on end. It was all tousled. And his face was just hideous, and he smelled.
The search for Bigfoot in the United States is in its infancy. The search for a relative of the Bigfoot has already been underway in Asia for over half a century. In the Caucasus and Pamir mountain ranges of Russia, scientists have found proof of a Bigfoot creature, which they call the Almista. In the nearby Himalayas, the highest mountains in the world, Western explorers and investigators have pursued the riddle of another elusive man-ape, the hairy giant known as the Abominable Snowman, or the Yeti. Part of the mountain people's lives for centuries, the snowman only became known to the West in the late 19th century, when British mountaineers began to attempt to conquer Mount Everest. But it wasn't until 1951, when veteran climber Eric Shipton discovered a new pass at 19,000 feet, that actual evidence was collected. Shipton, standing where no man had ever been before, took these photographs of giant man-like tracks. Once a non-believer in the Yeti, Shipton remembers.
Well, I must say I felt I had a very strange feeling inside. I've often seen these tracks before, but hitherto I'd always been a bit of an agnostic about the whole question, but seeing these tracks so absolutely fresh and clear, well, there seemed to be no doubt about it at all, and it was that that really gave me a very eerie feeling that here one was in the presence of something quite unknown.
Although these strange footprints puzzled the scientific community, they reinforced the startling story told by a veteran explorer. Nicholas Tombazi of Athens, Greece, a photographer and a trained observer, had claimed he saw the abominable snowman on an expedition to Everest in 1925. Almost never seen by Westerners, the snowman was glimpsed by Tombazi in a clearing only 300 yards away. Tombazi described it as a dark and hairy, man-like creature that was grubbing for roots with a stick. Other evidence to prove the snowman existed has been collected. In 1958, one expedition discovered this cave, thought to be the lair of the Yeti. And in 1961, another expedition came across what was believed to be the hide of a Yeti. Another discovered what was believed to be a Yeti's mummified hand. States land bridge which linked Russia to Alaska. In support of this theory, there is the evidence of Bigfoot's continuous presence in Indian history, appearing in various forms on totem poles and paintings, and being called by different names, like Gilwick, Silatic, Oma, Bukwas, and Sasquatch. Part of the North American Indians' mythology from the beginning, Bigfoot was first encountered by a European in 1811. British explorer and mountain man David Thompson noted in his journal that while crossing the Rockies, he came across footprints made by a giant. Footprints whose great size, he wrote, could not have been made by bears. And in July of 1884, a British Columbia newspaper carried the account of the capture of a creature. A creature they called Jacko, whose description fits that of a young Bigfoot. Another early account of Bigfoot in America comes from President Theodore Roosevelt in a book he wrote about his days out west. The true story concerns two trappers on the Salmon River. It was in 1852. The trappers encountered the creature. Violence followed. One of the men was killed. Roosevelt wrote that he believed the story. In 1924, in British Columbia, a vacationing prospector, Albert Ostman, reported that he was captured and held prisoner by a family of 4 Bigfoot creatures. Ostman's incredible tale included observations that one scientist felt could only have come from a direct encounter with a large primate species. Ostman signed an affidavit before his death, attesting to the truthfulness of his story.
Oh, God.
That same year in Washington State, Fred Beck and 4 other miners reported they shot at 2 different Bigfoot creatures. Later, Beck and his friends were attacked by an angry group of Bigfoot giants who tried to destroy their cabin by rolling large boulders onto the roof. These and other accounts make up the long history of man's experience with Bigfoot in the forests of America. Stories from the past, colorful and exciting, yet by themselves, not quite enough to prove that Bigfoot exists. We need something more. The accounts of eyewitnesses today, people whose stories we can check on firsthand. Such is the story of Mary Lou Bowman of a small town in western Michigan. The time, October 6th, 1974. The 17-year-old high school senior was waiting for her father. Don Bowman, a former high school football coach and now a respectable businessman, had never heard of the creature that he and his daughter were about to encounter. Had no idea that the dark road ahead, beyond where his daughter stood waiting for him, held a promise of terror that would soon bolt up out of the shadows.
How was your babysitting?
Fine, except I didn't know.
The next day, police found giant footprints in the dirt on the side of the road near the site of the accident.
I know the animals that are here. This was something different that I had never seen before. A large creature, about 7.5 to 8 foot tall. It was grayish-black in color. And as it went away from me, I seen the backside of it, walking as a man would walk on his hind legs.
There were 4 of us in the car when I was the first one to sight it. We pulled up on the freeway and pulled back for optimum viewing. Oh, I'd seen people from the same location and in about the same spot before. Humans up there. It probably was twice the size.
It was a dark brown, just swaying back and forth. me on a rock.
It moved more or less like a man, and it was about 6-7 feet tall and probably a blackish brown color, and I couldn't see his face because it was running away from me across the road, and I actually, her and I both saw it disappear into the brush. Like I say, I was born and raised around here, and bears just don't walk on these hind legs that long.
Another eyewitness of the creature was Shirley Adams, a teacher and school bus driver in a small town on the coast of northern Washington. A longtime resident of the area, the young school teacher had often heard stories about the giant, hairy, ape-like monster, but she had never seen it. Never thought she would. What Shirley Adams saw did not frighten her. She experienced, in her own words, an unusual pleasure at seeing a creature at peace with nature. She observed the hairy giant for several moments and considered it not in terms of fear, but in terms of wonder. Eyewitness testimony, however, has had little such effect on the scientific community.
Eyewitness reports are not reliable. People can think they see things. Their minds can play tricks on them.
But Dr. Tibbet, so many people have seen Bigfoot. Now, is it possible that they're all hallucinating?
Look, see this skull? Now that's hard evidence, something to test, to deal with. Bring me a bone or a skull or a carcass, and then maybe I'll believe in Bigfoot.
Look, hundreds of law-abiding, respectable people have testified that they've seen Bigfoot. They've signed affidavits to that effect. They've even subjected themselves to examination under hypnosis. And yet the scientific community completely disregards such testimony.
It's unreliable.
But isn't it possible that science doesn't know how to use oral evidence? I mean, how to evaluate it, let's say the way the law does. Now, isn't oral testimony the basis of our judicial system?
Well, I don't know. Science needs something concrete. Why, for instance, hasn't a hunter ever been able to find the remains of a dead Bigfoot in the forest? I mean, there have been so many people through the area where this thing supposedly has been seen. Yet nothing.
A valid question. To find out the answer, I talked to anthropologist Dr. Lawrence Bradley.
Well, in reality, very few bones are ever found anywhere in the forest. When an animal dies, it's immediately eaten by another animal. This is the disposal service of nature at work. I go up in the woods in Oregon and Washington all the time, and I'd never seen the remains of bears or even mountain lions. And these animals are in abundance up there.
Dr. Bradley, it's been suggested by some people that maybe the Bigfoot creatures bury their dead.
That's remotely possible. If Bigfoot is, as some of us think, a humanoid, a species of animal more man-like than beast.
But it is possible.
Yes, but it's a proposition completely rejected by my colleagues. But then my colleagues completely reject the possibility of Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, most scientists say, cannot exist. But Dan Malachny of Deer Lodge, Montana, disagrees.
I don't care what other people think. I saw Bigfoot 10 years ago. I was with 11 other Boy Scouts at the time. And we were camping 18 miles south of Butte in the Deer Lodge National Forest. We had walked in to the forest about 5 miles that day.
It's not over yet. We got another mile. John, did you get a new away flap? Not yet. I started another hour's service. Oh, God, my boots are killing me. You're not the only one, man. They went down in there and they found the cars smashed.
After setting up camp, Dan and his friends ate dinner and then sat around and talked, telling jokes until bedtime. The boys were all in their bedrolls and fast asleep by 11 o'clock. Whatever it was in the forest, Dan's friend was the first to sense it, the first to hear it.
Oh, God. I love these old documentaries from the 70s. They're so on.
Dan and two other boys saw the giant monster. It took us a couple hours to get back to
I
sleep.
got bad sinuses.
And when we got up the next morning, we went up on the ridge where we saw the Bigfoot out. And when we got up there, we discovered a number of footprints, the biggest footprints I've ever seen. And they looked something like this.
Exhibit B, the footprints. Some 20 inches long, 8 inches wide. Footprints found impressed 2 inches deep into the earth, an inch and a half deeper than a normal man's. Footprints that show that a giant walks here, moving on 2 feet as a man moves.
I'm in South Carolina. It's 1:30 here, too.
Existence of a creature, if after all, fingerprints can be used to hang one. These footprints, however, in spite of their number, do not convince the scientific community that Bigfoot exists. These scientists maintain that nature plays tricks with footprints, especially in the snow. Footprints, they say, change shape, grow larger as they continuously melt and refreeze. I asked Peter Byrne, formerly a big game hunter in the Himalayas, about this theory of distorted footprints in the snow.
Shoot one. Small footprints do melt out. This is true. Footprint of a deer, say 2 inches across, may become 5 or 6 or even 7 inches across when it melts. But they do not melt with any uniformity. So that if you had a line of these footprints, the melted footprints of a small animal, they come out completely out of any uniformity, different shapes, squares, circles, oblongs, and so on. And I think it's ridiculous to suggest that a small animal and the melting snow could really make a Bigfoot track.
Some believe that the giant footprints are made by bears, who, as they move, place their hind feet into the tracks of their front feet.
I don't think this is possible. The footprints that I've seen are very definite. They're very definitely the foot of a large bipedal hominid, a human-like creature with 5 toes. When you get an overlap, you get a confusion of toes and heels and so on. These are clear-cut footprints, and in my mind, there's no mistake.
Good night, Grandpa.
If the footprints are not distorted by nature or made by a quadruped like bears, scientists say they're footprints made by hoaxers, like Ray Pickens of Chehalis, Washington. 7 times, beginning in 1971, Pickens has tracked the wilderness with bogus Bigfoot tracks. His purpose? Not to fool the scientists, but to fool the monster hunters. He tells us why.
Well, we were sitting there having coffee at this Arden Cafe, and 2 gentlemen came in, and they was asking us about Bigfoot. We said, well, we didn't believe in it. And one gentleman says, well, you hicks around Arden probably wouldn't. And I turned to my friend, which his name is Harvey, and I says, Harvey, we're hicks. What are we going to do about it? And he says, yeah, what are we going to do about it? I says, we're going to show them who the hicks are. And then I went home and made boots.
Hoaxers have fooled the experts occasionally, but anthropologist Grover Krantz of Washington State University insists that fakers could not have made all the giant footprints.
There are a number of footprints that I've seen that are faked, and this can be done. But on the other hand, there are a few that show some characteristics that I think could not have been faked. This is one such footprint. This cast I've drawn in the approximate reconstructions of the bones. This is a crippled individual where a couple of bulges have extended out between adjacent bones on the outer edge of the foot. If this had been a human foot, these bulges would have been farther back.
that they shifted forward, making the heel longer and the front of the foot shorter. This is exactly what is required for a foot that's going to carry perhaps an 800-pound body. Now, I don't think any faker could have thought of it and figured this out and adjusted his footprint accordingly. A fake footprint is just simply an expanded, enlarged footprint, or enlarged copy of a human foot.
Sounding stormy?
Background,
Be sure to drop your link in the chat.
Trained observer who personally discovered such giant tracks, like newspaperman Ed McLarney of Stevenson, Washington. I turned my head and looked in the direction Marv was pointing. Down below us, for as far as the eye could see, were two sets of tracks coming parallel up this terrifically steep ridge. They crossed the road. We walked up the road just a little bit farther, and they crossed the road right in front of us. Big, big tracks. They were firm tracks, and obviously the kinds of tracks that people have talked about when they described Bigfoot. And what was especially convincing was the terrific distance between footprints. I have got pretty long legs. I'm nearly 6'4", and I could not, in trying to stretch my feet, could not duplicate what we were seeing there. I had to jump from one track to another to duplicate the distance between tracks. In the first place, I do not think that any human being would have been physically capable of marching up that ridge in that deep snow. In the second place, that superhuman strength was required to do it. For years, the only proof of Bigfoot's existence were the accounts of eyewitnesses and the plaster casts of footprints. It's only now, during the last decade, that proof in the way of physical evidence has begun to be accumulated. Here, in these woods, in a remote region of the High Sierra, some of that evidence has been collected. It was in the fall of 1972, and three men, Alan Berry, Rick Murphy, and Tim Sawyer, had just discovered human-like footprints 20 inches long. They'd heard about the creature called Bigfoot, but they never thought they'd encounter it. The men were relaxing after a hard day in the woods.
I'll tell you, the next time we're coming out, he's doing the cooking, not you.
All right, I don't need any ribbing about that, Bill. You know, I told you guys I came up here as the guy.
The guy?
You believe that? And next time, Mel can do the cooking. That's a good idea. Well, I'll go home with Berry.
I told you I would. Listen.
Sounds like my mother-in-law.
You don't joke around. Listen.
I never heard anything like that before.
Me neither. I'm going to get that on the tape recorder.
Fortunately, on this trip to the Sierras, Alan Berry had his tape recorder along to record the sounds of various birds and animals. Calmly, he reached for this and not for his rifle.
Where's it coming? I don't know.
Not knowing what strange creature made these sounds, Dr. Sheldon subjected them to a rigorous computer analysis. How do you go about analyzing these tapes?
The first thing we do is to digitize the sound into the computer. Digitizing consists of converting each second of sound into 20,000 numbers that are stored in the files on the computer. We can select any portion of this we'd like and do a frequency analysis on this portion. We've chosen the ah sound from the tape because it
seems to have an unusual formant structure.
You mean that you've picked just a certain part of this tape, one section of it?
We've taken a section of this tape for analysis, much like a scientist might take a piece that he wants to analyze and look at it under a microscope. This particular sound that we're looking at has a frequency structure that's lower than the normal male human voice. For example, we could do a sample of your voice, and then we could compare the analysis of your vowel with the analysis that we have from the tape. You can speak into the microphone here, and we can record that into the computer. Just say ah.
Ah. The comparison of the two printouts showed that the creature's vowel sound peaked early, higher than mine.
Gee, there's a surprise.
My sound edged out at a secondary, lower peak. I asked Dr. Sheldon what he could learn from these comparisons.
Human male has a vocal tract on the average of about 17 centimeters long. This analysis tells us that based on the formant frequencies of this sound, we would have a vocal tract of about 25 centimeters long.
You see, so that could give you some idea of the size of whatever creature made the noise.
Yes, we could say that the vocal tract that produced these sounds would have been at least 50% larger than a human male.
And that means that if I'm over 6 feet tall, the creature that made this sound must be over 9 feet tall.
That's probably true, yes.
Are there any other tests that you can do to analyze the tape?
We can do what we call a formant track. It's similar to a voice print. It's a newer and better way to do a voice print analysis on the computer. We can look at the movement of the frequencies and say something about the articulatory flexibility. During the 15 minutes of sound on this tape, we have examples of 3 vowels, eh, ah, and o. But nowhere on the tape is there the sound e. Now, the sound e requires moving the tongue forward in the mouth. And if we look at the physical structure of, say, a gorilla, the gorilla has the neck at a different angle, and it's impossible for the gorilla to move his tongue forward in order to make the E sound. The fact that we don't see this sound on the tape suggests that this creature perhaps did not have the ability to make that sound.
Do you know what made these sounds?
No, I don't. Well, the first
Exhibit C.
is digitize this into the
Sounds made by an unknown creature, probably Bigfoot.
That consists of
Sounds that seem to indicate that the creature is more man than ape.
tape.
Similar sounds to those heard by Alan Berry and his friends have been heard by others, by those on expeditions searching for Bigfoot, and by men like Hal Williamson of Idaho. Williamson, a longtime fisherman and outdoorsman, was vacationing in British Columbia, Canada, when he first heard the strange sounds, coming, it seemed, from a great distance. The sounds seemed to be coming closer, and suddenly they were upon him. A confident sportsman, Williamson was determined to find out more about the creature he heard and saw. The air was heavy with a foul odor, a stench Williamson later described as being, in his own words, one of the worst smells he's ever experienced. His curiosity outweighing his fears, Williamson, unarmed, made his way to the area where he had spotted the Bigfoot. Silence belonging to no known animal.
Did they talk up? Yeah.
Spurred on by the increasing numbers of sightings, by the accumulating data pointing to the creature's possible existence, more and more organized expeditions are taking to the field to find a Bigfoot. This one is under the direction of Robert Morgan of Miami, Florida. The expedition hopes to photograph a live Bigfoot or produce evidence of a dead one. They believe a colony of over 200 Bigfoot creatures inhabits the unexplored wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. The expedition has tried to anticipate the creature's movements, running the roads, keeping a watchful eye for any evidence of its passing. Thinking Bigfoot to be a nocturnal creature, they're prepared to penetrate the darkness of night with special light amplification viewing devices. Morgan, a former government computer specialist, began to pursue Bigfoot only after having seen one, he says, in 1957.
And all of a sudden, this thing went through the bushes. He didn't go around. He went, I could see the wake, just plowed right through it. And he moved up at an angle away from me. I was on the edge of the canyon. And at a point, I estimate about 40 yards from me. It went into an opening, a clearing in the brambles. And what I saw was the most man-like looking gorilla, in my estimation, that I'd ever seen. Okay, and that's traveling slow.
Expeditions like this one have gone out armed with tranquilizing guns and cameras. The object is to bring back evidence to force the scientific establishment to take a more active part in the search for Bigfoot.
Somebody that way, we go up this way here. Okay, feet, hands, head. We'll see you in 3 days.
Though it did not find a Bigfoot, this team did find hair and fecal droppings. Evidence found on expeditions like that of Robert Morgan's, and evidence found by chance by hunters and hikers, eventually finds its way into scientific laboratories like this one. Some of it has yielded interesting results. For instance, though some feces collected and turned in are found to be that of bears or other animals, others remain unexplained, unidentifiable, possibly from a creature unknown to science. Now, a great deal can be learned from droppings. For example, the eating habits of the creature, which in turn can help those who are looking for Bigfoot. Now, the Morgan expedition reports that examination of feces leads them to believe that Bigfoot feeds on roots and grass and berries and tree shoots. And therefore, in their search for Bigfoot, they are following the growth of these succulents. Now, samples of hair believed to be that of Bigfoot are frequently brought in for examination. And again, though most of it turns out to be that of bears or some other known animal, there is that occasional finding, a strand of hair that defies analysis. Not that of a bear, not a man or a coyote or a wolf, but of something unknown. Thank you. Such hair samples have stymied scientific definition. Now, these hair samples were found at the site of giant human-like footprints and after a sighting of a Bigfoot creature. The hair samples, then, should be labeled Exhibit B, a piece of evidence which the United States Army has endorsed in its official engineering atlas covering the state of Washington. In a section about the wildlife of the state, Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, is featured. The text goes on to report that hair samples sent to the FBI labs have defied analysis. Exhibit E, the Minnesota Iceman. What might have been the only body of a Bigfoot ever found by modern man. At first, nothing more than a carnival exhibit, a rotting corpse partially visible in a block of ice. Later to be thought of by at least 2 international scientists as an unknown large primate, perhaps the dead body of a young young Bigfoot. This unusual evidence mysteriously disappeared in 1968. Next, I turned to an investigative avenue often taken by the world's police departments to get another, if unusually different, viewpoint of the creature's existence. A viewpoint that police departments in Miami, Boston, Los Angeles, and even Scotland Yard have called upon to help solve seemingly unsolvable crimes. I went to Peter Hurkos, the world's foremost psychic detective, at his home in Los Angeles. I took with me, unknown to him and concealed in a suitcase, a plaster cast of a giant Bigfoot footprint. Hurkos, who has worked with police on such cases as the Boston Strangler and the Ann Arbor murders, has the unusual psychic gift of being able to read facts from unseen objects, to sense the reality and truth of such objects, and to describe in detail, from telepathic images in his brain, what is hidden from his view.
I didn't know what to do with it. But I had to do any type of science me imposed.
Now, I have something inside this case that I want to know something more about.
Yeah.
Now, can you psychometrize what's in here without ever having seen it, and tell me something about it, anything?
I will try.
All right.
Can I set it up or what?
Yes,
I'll
you
put it
can
up.
put it any way you like.
That's in half man, half animal. Weighs about, I would say about 500 pounds. It's about between 8 and 9 feet. Lives in cave. Lives in cave. It's part of animals, the intestine in animals, and also berries and green stuff. It's not a gorilla. It's like a man, strong chest and long arms, normal fingers like we have. Very hairy, long hair and short beard type. Peter, do you want me to draw the picture the way I see the...
Will you? Yes, sure.
I have this paper.
We've witnessed a dazzling display of Peter Hurkos' psychic powers. Powers that not only determined what was in a closed case, but powers that said the object in that case was authentic, not a fake. That it was made by a living creature, by a Bigfoot. Exhibit F, Peter Hurkos, the vision of a psychic detective. For Exhibit G, I traveled to a small Washington town not far from the Canadian border, increasingly more intrigued by the abundance of psychic and physical evidence. The most compelling evidence for Bigfoot's existence, however, remains the eyewitness reports. And the most compelling of these are when the creature has been seen at the same time by more than one person. Now, in police work, this is called corroboration, and it's another way to establish the truth. Now, there are scores of such corroborative stories in the Bigfoot investigation, but the most interesting to me are these. This file contains the accounts of over a dozen sightings of Bigfoot, all taking place within a 30-day period in this small Washington town. It was during a salmon run on the river, and Mr. and Mrs. Tom Stern were the first to encounter the creature. It was during September 1975. Great day for fishing.
Yes, it really is.
Say, by the way, what time's your brother coming over this evening?
Oh, I don't know, fairly early. There's something wrong with this reel.
That's the one you wanted, sweetheart.
I don't know, maybe it's me. I don't seem to be working it right.
If you work it right and catch some fish, I promise I'll fry them.
Would you mind mind taking a look at her?
What is that?
At least 10 feet tall.
It must have weighed 500-600 pounds. Twice my stride. Mr. and Mrs. Stern's sighting of the hairy creature, backed up by their discovery of giant footprints, was to be followed by a more terrifying experience. December 12, 1975. Rita Graham was alone in the living room watching television.
I will be.
And then we're going to take it.
If you're watching this back on the replay, be sure to check out all the great links in the chat for all the really cool channels and the people who show support to the other channels. Be sure to check out Chad Smith Podcast, Sunny Stormy. My flock is everywhere.
Have you heard from Mary? I think she sent some flowers.
There's something out there.
There were 10 more such sightings in the town within the next 3 weeks, the most dramatic of which took place in the early morning hours of September 16th, while 3 Indian youths were fishing on the Nooksack River. John Green, 31, a recreational director for the Lummi Indian Council, and 2 friends were taking turns drifting down the channel, trailing their nets, fishing for salmon.
Harriet the Hendersons. God. I am reading chat, by the way. I'm just trying not to talk too much during the feature presentation here on 13 O'Clock Live with Daddy Dan. But when I do the movies in October, you can rest assured I will run my mouth all the way through them.
John Green heard a strange noise. He became aware of a strong, unpleasant smell, felt something tugging at his nets, but he saw nothing. maintain their stories that it tell lies, or are they telling the truth? With me is William Stenberg, a former police officer for the Glendale Police Department, a man licensed by the state of California to do polygraph work, that is, to conduct lie detector examinations. We're about to test the story of one of those townspeople, Johnny Green, whose story you've just seen. We're going to give him a lie detector test to see if he was telling the truth. In order that the test meet every standard of normal investigative work, our cameras will not intrude on the examination. We'll watch from back here through a two-way mirror. Johnny's reactions will not be altered by our presence. Now, Mr. Stenberg, can you tell me basically how the polygraph works?
Yes, sir, I can. This is a Keeler polygraph, 3-channel instrument. It records the breathing from the pneumo tube, which is placed around the subject's abdomen. The cardio cuff, which is placed upon either the left or right arm, records the rise and fall in the subject's blood pressure. A galvanic skin response is placed upon either the left or right hand, and it records certain perspiration emitted by the palm of the hand. All the reactions are recorded independently by the 3 pins, the pneumo, galvanic skin response, and the cardio.
All questions require yes or no answers.
No movement, John. Test about to begin. Close your eyes, please, John. Is your true name John Green?
Yes.
Do you intend to answer all of my questions truthfully?
Yes.
Do you believe you saw a creature 7 feet tall standing in the water of the Nooksack River at 2:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Did you feel and see the creature pull on the tailboard attached to your fishing net?
Yes.
Did you see the creature in your light?
Yes.
Were you truthful to me when you described the creature 7 feet tall, heavy build, covered with hair and a head shaped like a gorilla?
Yes.
To complete a polygraph test, Stenberg asks the same 12 questions 3 times each.
Have you lied to me on any of these questions?
No.
This is complete, John. Please remain seated.
The polygraph machine confirms that John Green did see something that night in the Nooksack River. Something large and hairy. Something John Green and his neighbors call Bigfoot.
Your eyes are becoming heavier.
Another way to test the truthfulness of eyewitnesses is through hypnosis, where people can more vividly recall things they saw and did but cannot remember.
It's going to become limp.
For this reason, police departments around the world now utilize hypnosis to get at the truth.
Eyes are becoming more and more heavy.
I'm in the office of Dr. Sidney Walter, a clinical psychologist licensed by the California State Board of Medical Examiners. A former professor at UCLA and a government consultant, Dr. Walter specializes in the use of hypnosis. And he is, at this moment, placing Jerry Lou Welchel of Fontana, California, into a hypnotic trance. Now, Jerry Lou has already told me that she, her girlfriend, and 2 children all saw Bigfoot one night 6 years ago. Dr. Walter will now test her story under hypnosis.
You're back into the summer of 1968. It is summertime of 1968. It is summertime of 1968. You're going to call up your girlfriend, Kathy. You're going to get into your T-Bird and drive toward that location. And you're going to relive and experience everything in detail, step by step.
Cassie? Kathy. Is Gene over to your house? Or you just left here? Yeah. No, he said that they were going up to see about that monster. Yeah. Okay, you want to go? I'll get the kids ready. Okay. See you in a few minutes. Okay, get your coats on. Okay, come here, sir.
Jerry Lou, now actually in a deep hypnotic trance,
Okay, go get in the
is
car.
recalling how she and a girlfriend went out to a deserted drag strip to investigate the reports of a monster seen there the night before.
Now get back in the seat and sit down. Kathy home? You ready to go? Okay. Now where was it? The drag strip. Nah. No monster's gonna be there. No. Okay. Oh, heck. Cuss. Kathy, look out. Get down, get down, get down. I'm all right. Let's go to the police. Come on.
Drift deeper and deeper into a locked state now, Jerry. Drift deeper and deeper into a locked state. You could hear me clearly. Let your whole body become calm and relaxed. Now you can recall scenes as I ask you questions. They'll be very vivid, very clear to you, but you are safe and sound. You are safe and sound at home. Jerry, you could hear me clearly. What were you frightened of?
It was big. It smelled terrible.
It was big and smelled terrible?
Yes. It just... It smelled terrible.
It smelled terrible. Can you describe what frightened you even more?
Most of all, is it getting to the kids. It was terrible. Terrible. It was like a... I can't explain it. It's just big, hairy, and it hurt me.
How big do you believe it was?
Using hypnosis as a tool to help us establish the truth, we have verified an actual eyewitness account of an encounter with
What
Bigfoot.
touched you, Jerry?
Exhibit H, the still photographs. This one taken in 1965 in Oregon by an experienced woodsman, Zach Hamilton. And this one taken in 1974 in British Columbia, Canada by an Ohio woman on vacation. And a third one taken in Alaska in 1973. Pictures of the creature would seem to be all the proof that's needed to confirm Bigfoot's existence. And the most famous picture of Bigfoot is this one, taken by Yakima, Washington rodeo rider Roger Patterson in 1967 in Bluff Creek, California. Patterson took about 28 feet of motion picture film, the most controversial film of its kind. It startled the scientific world. Anthropologist Grover Krantz of Washington State University, Dr. Donald W. Grieve, a London scientist, and Dr. Dmitry Donsky, the chief of biomechanics at a Russian institute, all studied the film, and they could find no reason to doubt the film's authenticity. And John Napier, a primate biologist formerly of the Smithsonian Institution, also studied the film, and he wrote in his book that he too is convinced that Bigfoot exists. Famous film while on an expedition with a colleague. They were tracking down a giant, hairy, man-like monster. Patterson had been searching for the creature for 8 years.
This has to be the highlight of this video, is the Patterson footage.
Suddenly there was a commotion. Patterson's horse reared, throwing him. Patterson grabbed his camera and filmed as he ran. Here is his actual footage, the images he captured. What he called the abominable snowman of America, or Bigfoot. If this film is legitimate, then there can no longer be any question about Bigfoot's existence.
It'll be copyright 300 for Danny Dan.
I went to anthropologist Grover Krantz at Washington State University.
There is one film that was made by Roger Patterson in 1967 of what appears to be a Sasquatch that I am reasonably convinced now is a legitimate piece of film. I've checked just about every possible measurement of that film, having looked at it, at least 50 times now. I don't think there's any way Patterson could have figured this all out and faked it.
I also asked Dr. Jeffrey Bourne, director of the prestigious Yerkes Primate Lab in Atlanta, Georgia, to analyze the film.
Well, that looks to me very much like a human walk. Its gait is very much of a human-type gait.
If you have a large primate who has basically the bipedal locomotion, he would have to have a human-like gait. This is exactly what I would expect.
And also when you look at its feet as it walks, the undersurface is much too light-colored for an animal with this kind of dark fur.
The light color on the bottom of the feet is perfectly normal for any primate, or, well, most hominid-like primates. Africans with black skin have very light-colored soles of the feet. This is simply because the stratum corneum is very thick and carries less of the pigment.
And furthermore, it seems to have the characteristics of both male and female. The head has a big crest on it, like a male gorilla does, and this crest is called a sagittal crest. Now, this creature also has pendulous breasts, which is the female characteristic.
The crest, the sagittal crest on the top of the head, has been claimed as a male characteristic in the Patterson film. Well, yes, it's a characteristic of adult male gorillas and orangutans, but it's not a male characteristic, it's a size characteristic. Beyond a certain size, the jaw muscles must find attachment on a special crest, and it happens that only male gorillas and orangutans get that big. If there were a female primate of the 5 to 500 pound body size, it would have to be so big that it would have a crest as well, so it's not a male characteristic.
And the breasts are covered in fur, and in all other primates, the breasts are actually either bare or very sparsely haired.
I don't know what the breast of a Sasquatch ought to look like. Of course, what's going on there is, in Patterson's film, the creature has a bulge here, which seems to be a two-part bulge, but it's not really very clear. This might not actually be breasts. These could be outpouchings from the trachea, which occur in many large apes, called laryngeal air sacs.
Patterson, who died of cancer in 1972, swore on his deathbed that this film was authentic. His partner that day also swears that what you are seeing now is a picture of a real Bigfoot. Satisfied with this evidence, some scientists are now trying to classify the Bigfoot creatures, declaring them to be perhaps a more evolved species of a fossilized ape, a more man-like Gigantopithecus. permanent dwellings, making their beds under trees or in caves. They sleep mostly during the day, traveling and looking for food at night, finding safety in the darkness. They have keen animal-like senses and they're quick to perceive danger. They're strong and very fast for creatures their size. And yet, they're non-territorial, yielding the land to the first intruder.
Oh, I'm way too stoned to be doing this tonight, ain't I?
Family units. Albert Ostman's observations in 1924 show that the father performed certain patriarchal duties for his family. The young of the Bigfoot probably enjoy a longer childhood than do most creatures in the wild. They're dependent on their elders for food, for protection, and for instruction in how to deal with the wild animals in the forest and with man.
No kidding, I'm joining like 8 channels this fucking
They
month.
themselves are not predators. If they were, more would be known about them. For a giant creature that attacked and fed on cougars and goats and deer could not long escape the watchful eye and the ready rifle of the hunter. They're shy and wary creatures, apparently gentle toward both man and beast. Creatures alive to the possibilities of the wilderness. They're elusive creatures, hard to catch a glimpse of. Creatures perhaps like man, still evolving into a higher order. There are some who believe that the Bigfoot creatures are man, primitive man, and as such are entitled to all the protection our society offers other men. One true story that illustrates Bigfoot's human likeness is that told about an Oregon high school teacher, William Lawrence. Lawrence was driving with his wife Kathy on a backcountry road in the spring of 1973. A lot of fish around here, especially this time of year. See if any wine here. Ton of them. You see that? Get my rifle and get a shot at this thing. Unknown. Some believe that Bigfoot is a kind of ape, undiscovered by science, or a prehistoric species of ape thought to be extinct. Others speculate it might be the so-called missing link, or even early man. Whatever it is, the volume of evidence seems conclusive. Our Earth is host to such giant creatures as the Bigfoot. There are the sightings, corroborated by hypnosis and polygraph tests, the footprints, the sound recordings, the photographs, the film, all enough to prove that Bigfoot is as much a part of our life as the gorilla or the Loch Ness Monster. Bigfoot is today free to roam the forests of America, living off the land but leaving no trace of his passage except for an occasional footprint. He's gigantic and powerful, and yet he harms nobody and destroys nothing. He is at peace with the wilderness. But this wilderness is vanishing. Each year, the press of civilization converts our forests into towns, our meadows into roads. The land the Bigfoot lives on shrinks. Soon they may be driven from their wilderness cover, like Ishi, the dawn man of Redding, California, and then we will at last know what they are. And then there will be no more skeptics. Man will continue to try to solve the mystery of Bigfoot. But as we do, let us hope that we will not destroy what we seek to understand.
Thanks for joining me tonight for 13 o'clock live. My name's Daily Dan, and I appreciate everybody joining me. Special shout outs to Lucky Smith. My flock is everywhere, Sarah. Sarah, you know I love you, babe. Terry Brown, Sunny Stormy, and all the cool people who joined me tonight. Chad Smith Podcast, it is an honor that you joined me because you're like one of the biggest channels on YouTube. And I really thank everybody who joined me tonight. And I couldn't name everybody if I tried because I've never had this many people. I swear to God, this is the most people I've ever had on a live stream ever. On 13 o'clock live with Daily Dan. Y'all have to forgive me. I'm like 4 mixed drinks in and a big fat bowl into celebrating the fact that I mentioned in chat that I received a massive inheritance this week. I bought a lot of cool comic books. I bought a lot of cool toys, collector's items. And guess what? Over half of them, I'm not keeping. No, I'm sending them out to all the cool people who have sent me stuff over the last year. I had one guy sent me $300 in $20 bills in cash in an envelope. Like I needed money. I don't know what he was thinking. Daily Dan does not need your money. Daily Dan is very well off. And then his mom passed away and left him a big inheritance. Now Daily Dan is like super freaking well off. Daily Dan has money out the ass. Daily Dan has so much money that I have set aside $2,500 that I'm going to spend on YouTube supporting my friends and supporting other channels. Channels to inspect, I don't know, I'm pretty drunk up, ain't I? Channels who will suspect they're going to get some money. AAP Variety Channel, you have a donation coming. Unidentified S4, you have a donation coming. Paranormal Highway, you have a big donation coming because I want my own cartoon. I hope you watch this, dude. So you got like major money coming. And a few other channels I plan on supporting. You know why? Because they have supported Daily Dan. These fuckers have made me mods, have let me drop my link in their chat. Harry Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks, Nikki, I love you, babe. Whenever you get monetized and you can get like donations, I've got quite a few dollars waiting on you, girl. And there's a few other channels like My Flock is Everywhere and stuff I want to really do stuff for, but you are not monetized and I cannot support you financially. And it really bothers me because I've got like so much money I'm going to have to throw some of it away. I don't know what to do. I'm going to give like $2,500 away in the next month on YouTube. I'm going to give away prizes. I'm going to send everybody who sent me comic books and pictures and all that cool stuff. I'm sending all you people cool stuff in the mail. I'm mailing 21 packages next week. I mailed 100 and something last week. So all y'all can expect really cool stuff from the Daily Dan blog. Thanks for joining me, and I'm going to end the show on the Daily Dan blog right now. 13 o'clock live is ending. Thank you for joining me. Stick around in a few minutes. After this song, I will do a very short 30 or 40-minute show called Show and Grow. And I'll show some Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And I'll show some Thrash No Ponds and a few of my favorite channels and give a few shout outs, and everybody can drop their links in the chat if you got the blue wrench. If anybody in the chat says, please drop my wrench, or drop my channel, please do it for them. Help people out, because I believe in Show and Grow. I believe everybody should grow their channels. So this is Denny Staten on the Daily Dan blog. For 13 o'clock live, I hope you enjoyed our feature presentation, The Mysterious Monsters, covering several things like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. It gave a viewpoint into what you thought about Bigfoot and cryptids in the 70s. And I love the old stuff. Next week, I've got a real short feature presentation. It's only like an hour and 9 minutes long. It's some Bigfoot stuff. But then I'll have a real long Show and Grow. So tell your friends, share it out. Show and Grow will be like a 45 hour and a half show next week. And I'll show a lot of videos by small channels, especially you, Lucky Smith. I'm going to do a special thing for you one day. I promise. It's on the list. And this is Pat McCormick playing us out. You'll find his link in the chat. Thank you, Pat McCormick, for doing the theme song and doing everything for 13 o'clock live with Daily Dan. Pat McCormick, the Golden Rage of TV, is one of my favorite channels. Thank you, sir. And this is the theme from 13 o'clock live. As I play it out, and shortly after this, about 10 seconds after this theme, we'll check in with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, my main Bigfoot man, with a really scary Bigfoot story. thank you, Pat McCormick at the Golden Rage of TV, providing the music for Daily Dan's 13 o'clock live. And by the way, Pat McCormick has a channel called the Golden Rage of TV. Be sure to check it out. And you know what? Daily Dan's going to drop a link in the chat for the Golden Rage of TV, even though he don't show up for my live streams for some reason. I guess he's in bed. I guess he's partying because he's like somebody important, not like a loser like me. But be sure to check out Pat McCormick at the Golden Rage of TV. Daily Dan, wow. I'm like 5 mixed drinks in and a fat bowl in, celebrating the fact that I inherited $1.8 million today, this week. And it's funny, I inherited $1.8 million this week. And I've only spent like $3,000 on comic books and toys because there's something wrong with me, guys. They really are. I don't know what's happening right now. I really don't. But this is Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Well, here in the minute after this commercial, this is Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. And he's going to tell us about a fisherman's canoe from this week. You know, I love Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and I'll drop his link in the chat too. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob is one of my favorite channels. And guess what? I sent Bigfoot, Michigan Rob some money yesterday because Bigfoot, Michigan Rob had enough sense to make Daily Dan a mod on his stream. So Bigfoot, Michigan Rob got a donation. Unlike some of you dumbasses who didn't make Daily Dan a mod, like Moggs, who didn't get a donation.
Monday, it's Labor Day. I'm going to get ready to go outside and do some barbecue. But before that,
Love you, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob.
there's a Bigfoot encounter about 3 guys in a canoe in 2014, getting their last fishing trip in for the season. Hope you liked it, and here we go. If I can pull this up, here we go. We were canoeing down the River Raisin in southern Lower Michigan. It was myself, my name is Jim, and I was with my friend Bill and John, as the 3 of us always went to the River Raisin prior to Labor Day weekend to get some of our last fishing days in. This story takes place back in 2014. We brought along our 2-man tents and some gear to find a spot at the Natural Wilderness Preserve in case we wanted to stay the night, which, by the way, Rob, always happens. Or if we found a nice campsite while canoeing both up and down the river. After parking our vehicle and taking all of the gear out of the truck and loaded it into the canoe, we were ready for the adventure. Loading the canoe, we entered the Raisin River. The River Raisin. Sure enough, after 20 minutes into the trip down the river, we found a spot that called out to us and said, yep, this is our camp spot. Bill, John, and myself almost certainly knew we were going to spend more than a day here. We pulled the canoe up on shore and unloaded all of our gear. We set up our camp, the tents, our coolers, food, and other utility items. We then proceeded back into the canoe with a cooler filled with water, some beers, and some dried jerky. Most importantly, though, was our fishing gear, in hopes to land some fish to complement the minimal supply of food that we had brought with us. Very prepared, guys, these guys. Our very first day of fishing was productive. We landed about 4 northern pike, a host of panfish, and even some lunker largemouth bass that always put up a hell of a fight, along with the northers. The 3 of us guys had noticed a lot of turned up stumps in the river that provided a great spot for fish to hide, and it did help provide in our successful fishing day. The stumps seemed to multiply every time we got into stronger currents. Not quite like rapids, but certainly doubled our speed storms giving us quite a jolt to our canoe. Day one, well, it was getting late, so we had decided to circle back to camp and fillet our day's catch. After eating our meal, we sat around our fire talking about what guys talk about. The wives, work, the kids, typical guy stuff, sports, etc., etc. Then, in the distance, we started hearing animal sounds, but these sounds, we could not put a finger on them. John had said, "Hey guys, these sounds, they sound almost like whoops, or something I have never heard." Bill had exclaimed back, "Well, not to sound funny, but Bigfoot has been known to make these sounds, kind of like a whoop sound that we're hearing." John and I, kind of joking, poked fun back at Bill. "Ha ha ha, Bill. Yeah, right, Bigfoot." We all brushed it off and went to sleep. The next morning, we proceeded back down the river in the hopes of having another successful fishing day. This day provided more than we had bargained for. As we canoed down the river, we once again got caught in a mighty current. We had to do our best to avoid hitting these topical stumps in the water. Continuing to bang off the deadfall, we came directly on top of a massive stump that was impossible to avoid. Then, the stump seemed to submerge into the water beneath the top as we were about to hit it. Then, out of nowhere, our canoe was raised up out of the water at least 10 feet high and spilled us into the river. The three of us are now more than a waist high in the water and watched the canoe and all of our contents travel downstream. Upon getting our bearings, the three of us, at about arm's length apart, see what appears to be a bear's backside. At least, that is what we first thought, a bear. But this was an upright animal walking on two legs. It had to be at least 8 foot tall. The backside was dark brown and black. And as it headed to the wood line, we saw a massive fish, at least 30 inches in length, being held in the creature's left hand with ease, as it quickly disappeared into the woods. Rather short of the story, we got the canoe back, and the three of us, still startled, sat at the river's edge to ponder what we saw. The only conclusion we came up with, and I agree, that bears do not have hands. Bears do not walk gracefully on two legs, upright, out of a river, carrying a fish, much like we carry a twig. Rob, I'm not saying this was Bigfoot, but it most definitely was not a bear or any other animal of the forest. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope it made your Labor Day pretty cool. I know you probably listened to this a little later. Everybody's probably out in their yards. Subscribe and share. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Again, happy Labor Day to everybody. Until next time, BMR is out.
And that's my friend, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, here on the Daddy Dad blog. Because he gives me permission to use his stuff. Thank you, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. If you checked out his live stream the night before last, you'll notice that Daddy Dan made a little donation to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Notice that Daddy Dan has got a great inheritance. If you check out the video on the Danny Staten channel, you'll see me flaunting my bad stuff. Anyway, I got a little donation, and I have set forth $2,500. And I'm going to reward every channel that made me a mod. Every channel like Harry Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks, AAP, Paranormal Highway. These channels that made me a mod so I could drop my link and share my shit out. It means a lot to me. So I'm going to reward all the channels that made me a mod, like Matt Troyce's Keto and Wrestling, who I've got a big box of wrestling stuff, all kinds of action figures and cool stuff. I'm sending them. I got a friend named Dave Sunstorm who's always supported me, and he's got like 100,000 subscribers. He shares out my stuff. He supports me. He loves Daily Dan's The Good Stuff. So I got a big box of really cool stuff I'm sending him. I have 124 packages I'm sending out next week of me comic books and toys and stuff. And I never ask for nothing. I never want you to ever, my friends on YouTube, never send me no money. If you send me anything, send me a comic book. And I promise you, if you send me a really good comic book, I'll send you something good back. But I don't want nothing from nobody. I get a really good check every month. I'm well off. And plus, I just got a really big inheritance, and I'm well off. And who knows what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, but I'm well off. I don't need nothing from nobody. I just like comic books. So, like I said, if you're going to send me anything, send me a goddamn comic book. Don't send me no money or nothing like that, because Daily Dan don't need your money. Daily Dan don't want your money. The only thing Daily Dan wants from you is your damn subscription and to watch my freaking videos. That's the only thing I want. I just saw a friend of mine, Joe, at Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group. In the chat, I dropped his link. Everybody should subscribe Joe at Western New York Bigfoot Group. As a matter of fact, if I can find it, because y'all have to forgive me tonight because I come into a lot of money and I've been like celebrating and buying stuff at the flea market and comic book shops and stuff all day. I've been like really like wasted. I've had like a bunch of mixed drinks and been smoking some weed and doing a lot of stuff I don't normally do. And Daddy Dan is lucky you even seeing this show tonight. It's just true. I don't even want to do this show. I just did this show because I'm supposed to. Because I do a show on YouTube, and that's what you're supposed to do, right? Anyway, my friend Joe at Western New York Bigfoot Research Group. Wow, why don't you shorten your name of your channel, Joe? Has made several good videos. He does great live streams. He always keeps my interest. I watch Joe regularly. I do. Joe, I love you, guy. I do. Like a brother. Because your shows really pique my interest, especially when you're doing something cool and Bigfoot related. And when you went out in the field, Joe, I was right there with you. Because I always expected something to happen, especially after your encounter. So I dropped his link in the chat. And be sure to check out Joe at Western Bigfoot, New York Research. Yeah, did you catch that? Just me just being real quiet for a minute. Did anybody know that the Queen passed away this week? The Queen of England has passed away this week. And I guess if you check out Daily Dan's The Good Stuff, which you'll find that link in the chat too, you'll see what I did about the Queen this week. And I'm going to play a little bit of that because the Queen of England passed away. I'm not going to tell you what I really think about the Queen of England, but she did pass away.
The Queen died peacefully, the royal family says at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. Queen Elizabeth II has died at the age of 96. John, her health in just recent weeks and months obviously was called into question. There were some of the instances around her birthday back in April she missed due to her health declining, and it has come to this day where we now say goodbye to Queen Elizabeth II.
I mean, when you think about her reign, it is remarkable. She became queen upon her father Charles VI's death in February of 1952. Her coronation was June 3rd of the following year, but she has sat on that throne for 70 years now, becoming not only the longest reigning monarch in UK history, but the longest reigning monarch in world history as well. And she remained vital right up until the very end. I mean, it is a sad day in the UK and around the world, the passing of Queen Elizabeth. But what an amazing life she lived. What amazing service she delivered to the UK and 14 other Commonwealth countries around the world. And the fact that she was so beloved here in the United States, despite this country's history, with Britain going back to the 1700s, I mean, really is a testament to her being a force of nature and such a person to look up to in so many countries around the world. You know, as we digest this news here, let's go to Martha McCallum, who has prepared this wonderful look back at the Queen's life.
Queen Elizabeth II was born into the Royal Windsor family on April 21, 1926. At birth, as the oldest daughter of the Duke and Duchess of York and niece to the King, no one expected that little Elizabeth Alexandra Mary would one day be the longest serving and one of the most respected rulers of Great Britain. But a love story would transform her quiet country childhood into an altogether different destiny. When Elizabeth's uncle, Prince Edward, abdicated as king to marry the American divorcee, Wallis Simpson, Elizabeth's father reluctantly took the throne, becoming King George VI in 1936, making his oldest and then 10-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, his heir to the throne. At age 14, the homeschooled princess began to take on some royal duties. Her family was an outward expression of strength and resilience as England was battered by the Blitz in World War II. In 1945, at age 18, the young princess trained as a driver and mechanic in the Women's Auxiliary Service. She and her sister Margaret later joined those celebrating VE Day on the streets of London. Like thousands of others, she also had a sweetheart in the armed forces, her third cousin, Prince Philip of Greece. They were engaged to be married shortly after the princess's 21st birthday. The royal wedding held November of 1947 in London's Westminster Abbey. It brightened the gloom of those post-war years. The following year, the couple's first child, Charles, the Prince of Wales, was born. He was then followed by Princess Anne in 1950, Andrew in 1959, and Edward in 1963. But in 1952, while in Kenya with Prince Philip, Elizabeth learned the tragic news that her beloved father, the king, had died. In an instant, the 25-year-old became the Queen of England.
At my coronation, I shall dedicate myself anew to your service.
Elizabeth was to rule in a new era. Her coronation in all its splendor was the first to be broadcast on television, as millions around the globe watched the transformation as it happened. In 1957, Queen Elizabeth met President Eisenhower. She would go on to meet every U.S. president during her reign, except Lyndon Johnson. She often spoke of the strong and vital bond between America and the UK. But with the 1990s came turbulent times for the royal family, as the marriages of 3 of the Queen's children fell apart, all under the scrutiny of relentless TV coverage and tabloid headlines. Then, in 1997, Diana, Princess of Wales and mother to the Princes William and Harry, was killed in a car crash in France, as she was hounded by the paparazzi. At the time, the Queen was criticized for her reserved response and persuaded to make an unprecedented live broadcast.
So what I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say it from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being.
Over time, the monarchy's reputation rebounded. In April of 2011, the Queen attended Prince William's wedding to Kate Middleton, as some 2 billion people around the world watched the ceremony. She also made a historic visit to the Republic of Ireland, the first British monarch to do so in almost a century. a step toward healing a long and painful divide. The following year, the country turned out in force to celebrate Queen Elizabeth's 60-year reign, a Diamond Jubilee celebration spanning 4 days. Thousands lined the banks of the Thames as a flotilla of 1,000 boats, led by the Queen, made its way down the river. The worst of British weather tried but failed to dampen the mood, and the then 86-year-old Queen and 90-year-old Prince Philip stood side by side for the 4-hour ceremony. Queen Elizabeth ended the celebrations by thanking the nation for honoring her.
I will continue to treasure and draw inspiration from the countless kindnesses shown to me in this country and throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you all.
In 2013, the Queen welcomed her third great-grandchild, the much-anticipated Prince George, son of William and Kate. Now, all these years later, another George is now second in line to the British throne. His younger sister, Princess Charlotte, is third. She was born in 2015, and later that year, Queen Elizabeth became Britain's longest reigning monarch, overtaking her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. In 2016, the Queen celebrated her 90th birthday. That was a 4-day event, honoring the Queen's deep involvement with the armed forces and giving the nation a chance to celebrate her life. 2018, the Queen watched on as grandson Prince Harry married the American actress Meghan Markle in a ceremony that brought glamour and Hollywood royalty to the House of Windsor and led them firmly into the 21st century. But about a year later, Harry and Meghan would famously decide to leave the royal family, move to America, and give a tell-all interview to Oprah Winfrey, which caused deep divisions within the family. In 2021, the Queen's beloved husband, Prince Philip, died at the age of 99. The nation mourned with the Queen, but COVID restrictions kept the funeral small. The image of the Queen sitting masked and alone in the church became the image of a country both in mourning and in lockdown. But as she had so many times before, the Queen persevered. From an early age, Queen Elizabeth was one of the most recognized royals and recognized women in the world. Nearly a third of the planet lived in the Commonwealth that she ruled. She managed to combine the truly regal with a countrywoman's simple pleasures, and she embodied old-fashioned values of virtue, faith, and self-restraint, honoring to the very end the pledge she had made when she was just 21.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
Well, rest in peace to the Queen.
5 things you might not know.
Rest in peace to the Queen. But that caught me a little off guard, didn't it? You have to forgive Daily Dan today. Like I said, I've been celebrating a lot of stuff today. Daily Dan's had a few mixed drinks. Daily Dan's been chilling. Daily Dan's feeling really good because it's been a good week for Daily Dan. And I'm going to chill out now with my friend Dave Sunstorm. And he's going to tell you about the time Bigfoot scared the crap out of him.
Back in the mid-70s, it felt like everybody had a soft spot for Bigfoot. And you know what? Even though I was just a kid, I was no different. I was equally intrigued and scared silly by the idea of a giant hairy beast wandering around in the wilderness. Way back then, this particular footage was getting a ton of press, and there were lots of people trying to track one of these fellers down. Not me, though. I didn't need to head out to the Pacific Northwest because there was plenty of Bigfoot sightings on TV and in the movies. The first movie that I can remember was The Legend of Boggy Creek. that movie, I had nightmares for days, and I also developed an irrational fear of going downstairs into our unfinished basement. You see, I thought that it was ever so slightly possible that Bigfoot might just be down there. And that wasn't the only Bigfoot movie that I saw way back in the mid-70s. My dad took me to all of them. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because they were all rated G and he was trying to take us to family-friendly movies. But truth be told, I would have been better off going to a Dirty Harry movie or something less family-friendly because thoughts of Bigfoot scared the crap out of me. Out of all those movies, I think Sasquatch might have been the flick that actually scared me the most. Anyway, I was certain that at some point, not sure where, not sure when, Bigfoot and I would cross paths. And when we did, well, I was also quite certain things would not go well for me. Here's the TV guide listing for the first episode of The $6 Million Man with Bigfoot in it. I remember seeing this print ad and freaking out. Yep, the $6 Million Man was about to begin his most dangerous adventure that would eventually lead him face to face with Bigfoot. And after seeing that episode, I've got to say I was not disappointed. Bigfoot was humongous. And that clash with Steve and Bigfoot, holy cow, it was epic. By the way, I love the tunnel which led to Bigfoot's hideaway. Super cool. And apparently, at the time, a new addition to the Universal Studios tour. Initially, the attraction was inspired by another movie, but once this episode aired, it would be associated with the $6 Million Man for almost 2 decades. Another one of the really neat things about those episodes during season 3 was the casting of Bigfoot. Years later, I would shout and boo at Andre the Giant in person as he battled Hulk Hogan at a WWF event at the Salt Palace here in Salt Lake City. And a few years later, I would fall in love with him as an actor in one of my all-time favorite movies, The Princess Bride. Getting back to late 70s TV, I knew Bigfoot mania was in full swing when Leonard Nimoy tackled the subject in an early episode of his great documentary series, In Search Of. Even Shazam's female counterpart, Isis, got into the act when the students of Andrea Thomas's school thought that someone or something huge was living in the local mountains. When some of the students think it's the legendary monster Bigfoot, she decides to investigate. Of course, at the end of the day, we all learn a valuable lesson about acceptance and understanding.
There's a well-known proverb that says, you can't judge a book by its cover. What that means is that you can't tell what something is like just by the way it looks. That's especially true of people.
And then there was the Sid and Marty Krofft produced Bigfoot and Wild Boy. This show may actually be my favorite version of Bigfoot ever. Yep, the hairy dude is not only a superhero in this one, but he's also a kind, supportive, and caring adoptive father to Wild Boy. And I think the makeup and costume work on this show surpassed even what we saw on The $6 Million Man.
Out of the great Northwest comes the legendary Bigfoot, who 8 years ago saved a young child lost in the vast wilderness and raised that child until he grew up to be Wild Boy.
And you can see Bigfoot and Wild Boy on the Danny Staten channel. Be sure to check that out. Link is in the chat.
Returning to the big screen for a moment, The Legend of Boggy Creek was so popular that it spawned a number of sequels, but the best one of the bunch was 1977's Return to Boggy Creek, which must have had a bigger budget than the original because Don Wills and Dana Plato were part of the cast.
What kind of crazy place is this? Does somebody live here? Yeah. The monster.
The all-new Return to Boggy Creek, the family adventure picture of the year. Are you too scared to come back? Return to Boggy Creek.
I love the tagline on the poster as horrified kids run for their lives from the Boggy Creek monster. It says, a G-rated adventure for the entire family. Now, there actually was a Bigfoot movie that would show up years later that was for the entire family. The film I'm talking about is 1987's Harry and the Hendersons. I really like this movie, and I'm happy to report that after repeated viewings, I still haven't had a single nightmare because of it. Unlike this darn thing. A G-rated movie for the whole family? Hollywood, have you no shame? Getting back to Harry and the Hendersons, that movie was so popular, it spawned a TV series that ran for a couple of seasons during the early 90s. Folks, I could go on and on, but since I talk about TV shows and movies from the 50s through the 80s, I'll stop there. Alright, now it's your turn. Please share your Bigfoot memories in the comments section. While you're at it, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Maybe even consider subscribing to my little channel. Like I said just a moment ago, I talk about music, movies, and mostly TV from the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
And you'll find Dave Sunstorm's link in the chat. Be sure to check out my friend Dave Sunstorm. He's our good stuff community leader. And you can check out stuff like Thrash Pondo Ponds and Retro Cereal and Dave Sunstorm on my Wednesday live streams where I show the good stuff. And I hope everybody is really sure to check that out. And now I'm going to show a little something from my friends, which I always do to finish the show. If that ever gets through these freaking commercials, because I love commercials. I'm going to show a little something from my friends. My friends at Paranormal Highway. You know, Eric, Connor, Anthony, all the cool guys. And this is a little taste of their cartoon stuff. And you can find the full cartoons on their channel at Paranormal Highway. And you'll be able to find that link in the chat.
Hey, sorry I'm late, man. The Bigfoot casts were taking forever to dry out. No problem, dude. I know there's a shortcut on Paranormal Highway Road. Oh, awesome. I have so much to talk about. Oh, I bet you do. Eric, there's this gator that has 2 toes. He's 24 feet long. His name is Tom. He's a... Dude, shut up. There's Bigfoot out there. Let's go talk to him, man. Come on, let's go. Take it slow, man. Be easy. Hey, we want you for this show. We want to show people you exist. Hey, and we have jerky, too. So, Barry, what brings you out of the woods? Where are you from, man? Comes from Boggy Creek. Oh, man, you're far from there, dude. Oh, there was a unicorn out there. I'm not even kidding. Holy crap, there's a unicorn in front of me. Hold on, guys, hold on. Oh, that was close. They say the horn brings good luck. Magical powers. Hey, Barry, you were right about that unicorn. Know anything else about the mythical woods? Yeah, man, that's Medusa. Do not look in her eyes. She will turn you to stone. Eric, be careful. Hey, Medusa, we're doing a live show on the Paranormal Highway Show. I want to show the world that you exist. How about it? Oh, man, what's this happening? Guys, I love the show, man. I want you guys to hang out. In fact, I want to play you guys on my planet. Oh, wow. I can't wait to check out your planet. You got girls there? Hey, guys, you're going to have a great time on my planet. We're going to blow some things up. What's there to do? What's there to drink? Lots of smoke, lots of drinks. Don't worry about that. What's that red light? What's in front of us? Are those meteorites? Oh, no! Don't worry about this. He's got this. Take cover! I'm so not that bad. You guys are just freaking out for no reason. No worries, man. No worries. No! Easy. This is not a problem, man. This happens every day.
And that is my friend Eric's channel, Paranormal Highway. Be sure to check out Paranormal Highway. He has a lot of cool cartoons over there, as well as all the latest cryptid information on various cryptids like Bigfoot, the lizard man, and the chupacabra, as well as checking in with unidentified S4. You know, our friend Anthony, who keeps us updated on all the UFO stuff. I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight, like my block is everywhere, Sarah. Sunny, Stormy, Caucasian Sasquatch, AAP Variety Channel, Lucky Smith, and everybody else who joined me today on the live stream. And let me tell you, this is really cool. I got more people on today's live stream than I've ever got before. So that means I'm moving up in the world. Wait till I get a laptop and start doing a show that don't look like a hillbilly redneck show. Well, maybe I'll get a lot more people. But right now I'm doing the best I can, and I appreciate everybody for joining me. Be sure to share out this stream. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out all the links in the chat. And if you like the channel you're watching, after you check out the links, be sure to subscribe. So what kind of song should I end the night with? There's only one kind of song I could end the night with. And that's my theme song. The song about Bigfoot in South Carolina. And I thank everybody for joining me, especially my flock. And once again, Caucasian Sasquatch, Chad Smith podcast, and some of the really big channels that decided to join me in my shitty little live stream. I do appreciate it. And this is Danny Staten on the Daily Dan blog. Thanks for joining me for 13 o'clock live. Be sure to join me Wednesday night when I'll be doing a lot shorter shows. And that'll be on the Danny Staten channel, and you'll find that link in the chat. And on that Show and Grow show, it's only like a 30 or 40 minute feature presentation, and the whole rest of the show is growing small channels, which is the most important thing on YouTube. It's helping the small channels grow. So this is the Daily Dan signing off for tonight. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, and every one of y'all are very special. You'll find links for all my favorite people in the chat. Be sure to check it out.
Down in South Carolina, way down yonder, there's a big old critter that likes to wander around my backyard sometimes late at night. Well, it ain't no beaver, bobcat, or bear, 'cause he's 8 foot tall and covered in hair, and the first time I seen him, he gave me quite a fright. Well, he eats from my garden and pees in my grass, and he stinks like a skunk mixed with grizzly bear ass, and he scares my cats when they smell him come around. Well, he spends his time peeking around trees, and he thinks what he wants, and he does what he pleases, like scratching his butt and making a grunting sound. Sasquatch, Sasquatch, knocking on the trees, chucking rocks and screaming like a troop of chimpanzees. Sasquatch, Sasquatch, running around my place. Are you the missing link, or are you from outer space? Now you may wonder, what does a Sasquatch do when he's wandering around at 1:45 in the middle of the night because he's feeling down? Well, he comes on over to visit my house. I think he has a little thing for my spouse, 'cause she always feels like someone is around. Well, he looks in the windows and checks out my wife. Can't say as I blame him. She looks pretty nice in a fuzzy robe as green as the foam of the sea. Well, he stands and he blinks as he ponders and thinks about humans and love, and she smiles so sweet. He wonders what the heck she sees in me. Sasquatch, Sasquatch, stop looking in my windows. I think it's kinda creepy. Voyeuristic weirdo. Sasquatch, Sasquatch, keep your big paws to yourself. And you got a lady Sasquatch to raise your Sasquatch whelps.
And I thank everybody for joining me, and I appreciate it. Good night and happy trails to everybody on YouTube. Be sure to join me Wednesday night for the Show and Grow Show.